Alors, bonjour à tous, bienvenue à Annecy. That's the last French you'll hear from me this morning. The rest of our conversation will be in English, and we'll try and keep things kind of casual and open it up to the audience for questions, since you guys are all intelligent, bright people at the sort of cusp of your careers, and that's sort of the conversation that we're looking to have here with Carlos Saldanha. I probably don't need to give him much of an introduction. He's one of the stars in the blue sky, and has co-directed or directed the first 3 Ice Age movies, the 2 Rio movies, and has Ferdinand the Bull coming this Christmas in theaters. So the idea is to sort of get a sense of his career, how he started, the projects that mainly Ferdinand, to look at the project coming up, and just try and impart as much wisdom as we can onto you guys over the course of an hour. So welcome, and I guess we'll dive in. Bonjour. So, Carlos, you started out basically in computer animation, or working through the School of Visual Arts in New York, and it was sort of at a moment when it wasn't at all clear that there was a future for features, certainly, in this medium. Can you talk a little bit about sort of the leap of faith you took in pursuing an artistic career, but doing it sort of in the prescient way, the smart way of anticipating that its future might be digital?
I think sometimes we always question ourselves. We always question ourselves, like, am I an artist? Can I do it? Can I? What level am I? You know, I always question that myself, because I never had like a training. Like I love to draw. I always did when I was a kid, but it was like a kid drawing on paper. I never really really had any classes to learn how to do it. So I always question, like, am I an artist? I like to draw, can I do this? So I had that question like much later, until I realized that that I could pursue something that allowed me to be an artist. And that's when I found the computer graphics. You know, I was still back in Brazil back then, and I wanted to go to art school, and I remember my parents telling me, like, oh my God, art school? Like, you really want to go to art school? Like, you're gonna not have a job, you're gonna want to be painting, you know, drawing pictures, what are you gonna do? And it's like, well, I don't know, like, I want to try to pursue that. I said, oh no, maybe try a real school, you know, somebody that's more like something more. And then that's when I tried computers. I love computers, you know, like, back in the days, like, the computer was, you know, a third, or, you know, not even a third, like a very small fraction of my iPhone right now, how fast that was. And so I decided that I want to try to see if that would work. And after I graduated from computer science school, I wanted to see, like, I started to get tired of the computer a little bit, and it's like, where is the art can come in? And that's when I got exposed to animation from festivals. You know, and this festival, it was not quite a festival, but more like a seminar called SIGGRAPH in the US, which was at the time was the biggest special effects and computer graphics event. And I saw a short by Pixar, which was Loisirs Jr. And when I saw that, and I said, oh my gosh, they did that in a computer. It looks real, computer, and it's like, it's kind of an art, because it's like animation, it's character and all that stuff. So I was very excited with the possibilities, and then I started to look after it. Then I was trying to really, you know, research what was that. Computers, can computer do art? Can I do art? You know, like those questions started to be in my mind every day, until I came upon School of Visual Arts through a friend of a friend of a friend who kind of went to School of Visual Arts and said, like, oh, there's a great program there. It's early. I think my class was like one of the first few classes that started the program. And
what year? Early
this
90s?
It was early 90s. Like, I ended up going to SVA in 91. And so it was a great way just for me to, when I saw that, it's like, okay, this is the goal. I want to try to see if it would work. But I didn't know if it was going to work, so I went in. And my original plan was to do like just a continuing education class, like a temporary class, just to see, like if I could do it, if that was something that I would pursue. And I remember getting into the lab at School of Visual Arts and just looking at all the computers, and I had like a small little computer back home, and then I went to this lab and they have like 30 computers. I was like, wow, this is great, you know. And the lab was kind of empty because, you know, it was like, you know, you could have 24 hours access, and I wanted to be, you know, for any student that want to use it, and that was new for me, coming from Brazil. And I was like, I want to do this. So when I set my butt in the computer and I started to play around and look at the manuals, I fell in love with it. I knew that that's what I was going to do. And lucky enough, my teacher, Bruce Once, which is here right now, you know, he you know, gave me the motivation to keep going. And he invited me to join, at the end of the class, he invited me to join the MFA, the master's program, just to work in bigger computers. Like that was like the Silicon Graphics back then. And that was for me like the big upgrade of computer graphics. And then I realized that at the minute that I sat down on the computer and I created my first sphere, I was like, wow, I can create art. I can do something really good. So, and then I never, you know, from that point on, I just kept going and going and going, and then I felt my passion.
How are you as an artist? I mean, do you feel...
I'm shitty.
Do you feel confident? So in a way that, for you, you could kind of hide behind the computer and it becomes your tool or your way to do things that you couldn't do with your hands.
It's funny, when I ask that question today at Blue Sky, when I walk around and I see the artists that work, you know, the true artists that work around me, that I can see them like the drawing and the perspective and the craft and all that stuff, I get so jealous. I just look at this, oh, you draw so well, you know. The good thing that they draw for me, which is great. But I really love that, you know, seeing that, and I that's one thing that I never had, you know. I you know, not that I can't draw, I can draw, but compared to the people that actually are their artists, like with color and light and everything, I see much more, you know. And so I like to learn every time. It's like almost like a visual experience for me, just to be involved with so much talent, a lot of talented artists. But what I think what I do had, and I always had, was an artistic mind. So I try to use that. I think that's my biggest like resource, and then that's how I think like everyone here that works with animation or art or anything that's what matters. You know, if you can see it, if you have the vision of what you want, maybe you're lucky enough to do it yourself or to have somebody that you can have on your team that can achieve that vision or even plus that vision. So, and I think that's what I found when I went to Blue Sky. At SVA, I did my own projects. And I was able, actually, the computer for me felt so natural that I didn't miss the drawing when I was in the computer. I could actually create things in the computer that I probably couldn't draw as well. So I found the computer a little bit, you know, in a way my crutch. You know, I found that the computer was my tool. You know, as painters have like the pencil or the brush, I found the mouse being my best, you know, artistic tool, and I used that, and I used that skill and that because I was very good with computer before. So, and back in the days was very little computer art, was still trying to figure out what that would be. So I was able to really take that and take it to the next level myself. You know, so computer became an easy, amazing like canvas for me.
One of the things that I think we see with a lot of successful people who've kind of reached your status is that early on they sort of met up with or connected with some other artistic, you know, either an individual or a group,
right.
Like, you know, at CalArts, they're the, you know, the kind of like packs that have gone on to Disney and Pixar success. But was it at SVA that you and Chris Wedge met, or that seems to be kind of like a key partnership from very early on for you?
Yeah, I think the beauty of being in an educational environment is that, you know, at the time you are there, you know, you get to meet a lot of talented people, and you get to meet a lot of people that inspires you, and a lot of people that, you know, you interact with, that you learn from. You know, and I was very fortunate because I was in New York, SVA is in New York, and most of the animation business, everything was done at the time was done in California. So I didn't have the contact, I didn't have the interaction with those artists. But at Blue Sky, one of the teachers there at SVA was Chris Wedge. Because back then, believe me, Blue Sky was like literally like a handful of people that was struggling just to get like a TV commercial out. We had a beautiful software, we had a beautiful technology, we had a vision that we wanted to be bigger and do better things, but the company barely made it. You know, we were like, so that's why a lot of the professionals at Blue Sky would teach at School of Visual Arts, just in order to get an extra, you know, just
a lucrative field.
Yeah, to make ends meet a little bit, you know. So that was the thing, you know, and that was very good for me because I got to interact with them. And then, you know, Chris Wedge was one of my teachers at the animation class, and then he ended up being my thesis mentor. And when I graduated, he said, "Oh, come on, we have this company, Blue Sky, it's small, but we have big dreams, and we want to do this. And you want to come?" I said, "Sure, let's do it." You know, I was almost getting ready to go back to Brazil until I got the offer, so I was able to stay and work at Blue Sky, and it was like, you know, I never left, you know, so it must have been good.
Well, you know, it's interesting, like in the history of Pixar and Blue Sky and these companies, it's almost like people are a little ashamed of that chapter before the features started, where there was work on commercials and things like that. But I think it's actually really important to understand for a number of reasons. I mean, it's like, not only is that the history of this medium, that it wasn't obvious at first that features would be possible, but it's also like a rare playground in which to practice. And practice is one of the hardest things, I think, for artists to get in any, you know, cinema medium. Like, so you can kind of like do things that prepare you for, or you can try and fail, and nobody's kind of like judging you the same way. And can you talk a little bit about those early days at Blue Sky before it was clear that you would have the glamorous career that you do now?
Well, yeah, I think that the struggles are the same. The struggles at school or the struggles at the office, you know, when we started Blue Sky, is like, I think we all lived that. I think that is a timeless issue, like something, it always happens, you know, it always happens with everybody, is that you don't really know how you're going to get there, but you try to work as hard as you can to try to achieve that. We had a goal, and that's important to have. I think it's important to know where you want to head. It feels to me that you got to know like what your ultimate like dream, in a way. I had a dream, you know, I didn't know if it was going to achieve it, but I had like that kind of like, you know, pie in the sky kind of idea, like, oh, I want to do that, you know, I really want to try to do something cool. In a movie eventually, in a short. So I had like small little dreams that I kept like trying to achieve. Like I had and at Blue Sky we had the bigger dreams.
What was that dream? Like, just take us back. I mean,
look, my first dream, I could make my name move in the computer. That was like making my logo. My first dream was like, you know, like C and S and C and S would merge and spin around and be shiny and bright in the computer. That was my dream. When I arrived, that was my first little dream. And then when I got that done with at the time was the Alias, the software, I was like, wow. Okay, first step. Then the second step was like, I want to create an animated short. And then I just kind of like, and then I made that part of my thesis project. So, you know, I slept in the lab every day almost, you know, and then I kind of like achieved that goal of making a short. And then I did that in the first year, which I was supposed to do in the second year. So, but then that was good because I got a lot of experience. And then on the second year of school, I said, oh, okay, I have another dream, which would be to make another short, but a better short. And then that's what I worked on. And then when I finished that one, I had another dream, like maybe I can work in the US. And that was the other, you know, in the United States. And then that was the other dream. So I have this, it's not so much, I would say dream, but it's also called, it's almost like an objective. You know, I like to call it dream, it's a little more poetic, you know. But, you know, the truth is like, it's an objective. So that's what I tried to do. So I had this like milestone steps.
But I think it's important to rewind to that, because the dream at first wasn't like, I want to make $100 million features. It was,
well, that's a big dream.
You know,
yeah, that's a good one. I like that one.
I think it's important to remind, you know, and in the same way that, like, you know, I think a lot of people going out into this industry look at a Blue Sky or a Pixar as the ultimate place to work. But the ultimate place to work may actually be a smaller, you know, younger company where they can kind of they can participate in what's going on, but they can also shape the destiny of that company and sit at the same table as a Blue Sky or a Pixar in 10 years. You know, it's.
Yeah, I think the best dream is the conceptual dream for me. Like, it's the dream that allows you to be better or to feel better. That's what I call it a dream, because there's two different dreams. There's the dream, and there's the true goal or the objective. You know, those two things, you know, could be together. But the dream for me is something that, oh, I really want to do that. It's like it has an emotion. You know, it has a feeling of like, oh, I really want to fulfill my heart or my mind with something that feels good. And I have lots of those, you know, I still have lots of those, and I think we all need to have that, you know, and that was like, you know, even like my logo flying on TV was my egocentric dream of seeing my name spinning around, which was great, you know, but that had a, you know, an objective. There was like a sense of fulfillment, you know, a sense of, so I think that that's really important to have that. And then there's the objective dream, which it comes when I started to work at Blue Sky, that we had the big dream of making a big movie. You know, maybe a feature or even like a better short or something like that, a movie. And then the objective dream is like, we have to survive. In order to do that dream, we have to keep alive. And then that's why we did TV commercials. That's why we did, and then I think it's a great stage of, I love doing the commercials. I enjoyed it. Because every commercial was a mini dream that I was having, that oh my God, I'm having the opportunity of doing something, you know, that was really great. But we also, we always we try to match the work of doing commercials to the dream of making features, because we use the commercials as a way to prepare ourselves. For when the dream comes, I'm ready. And I think that's very important. I think that the most important thing, I think when I was at school, or when Blue Sky was very small and non-profit, you know, we didn't make any money out of it, was that we know that sacrifice would be made for us to be ready when the true dream comes true.
Explain one or two examples of commercials that sort of were steps toward.
Well, we have, you know, the money commercials, which is the pills job. You know, we do like every headache medicine that's out there. We did a good commercial about it, like pills dropping, falling in, getting into the liquid. Like we did everything. So every project we will look in a way that's like, you know, when the thing fell into the water, the bubbles come up, like that's a special effects that we get, because one day we're going to make a movie, we're going to need the bubbles, you know? So there's always that feeling, there was always that feeling of like, I got to learn something from it. You know, we did this commercial that was like, it was a award-winning commercial. It happens to be an award-winning commercial, which was like a razor that was like, you know, going through like, you know, it looks like perfect razor, like photorealistic. This was in 92, something like that. So a long time ago. And that commercial was like when proved to the world that we could do photorealistic images, and then we had a very powerful software. So that allows us to, like what we learned with that one, we ended up applying to every movie that we made after that. So I think that examples are, we never took any project for granted. Even if it was a simple job, we always will learn something. We always develop something new, and always try to push ourselves to be ready. It's all about being ready. I think that when you are at school, use that time to be ready. Because when the opportunity comes to have a job, when the opportunity comes to show something, like, you won't be able to do that right away. So, and that's what I did at school. Like, that's why I did my shorts. Because, of course, I had the idea I wanted to do, but I wanted to be ready. The minute that I graduated, I wanted to be ready to jump in and just kind of like animate. I wanted everything to be ready.
And is that how it happened? Did you finish your degree before going to Blue Sky? Or, I mean, sometimes people get poached out of school or don't finish their education. What's your...
No, I believe in finishing something. This is something that my parents, that's one good thing that my parents always told me. Like, when I was going to school, I wanted to go to art school, and then I went to computer science school. But in the middle of computer science school, I was like, oh, but I want to go to art school, I want to go to art school. He said, no, finish this one first, and then you do the other one. You know, so it's like, you know, because it's hard. Once you keep like not finishing things, you keep like having these pending things behind you, and like finish a cycle, you know, or find yourself the cycle. And I believe in finishing cycles. And I wanted to finish the MFA program because I thought that was important, and I needed to have that time. And that's one thing. Like when you were at school, that's for me one of the most valuable times, because it's me time. You know, it was me. It was me with the computer, me with my ideas, me with my problems, me with... It's all about... It's a good thing, because after that, it's not you anymore. is just everyone else, you know, like, so it's you and part of a collective. And then your ideas get shared, your ideas, you know, sometimes for better, and sometimes creating frustration. But in general, like, from that moment on, then when you leave school, it's like the world is a different place for you, because you are part of a collective creative process, and you have to know that. So that's why I keep telling people, like, don't take school for granted, because this is the only time, like, as little my shorts were, I still look back to them, to those, with such pride, because no matter, you know, it's like your children, you know, they could be a little ugly, they could be, but they're your children, you love them, you know, and so I love my projects, those are like my babies, you know, and I love them, and I kind of like, I look back and I have no shame, no nothing, like even if they're ugly, I was like, but that's mine, you know, I did it, you know, so, and so I think it's a very valuable transition, like experience for me that way.
Before we close the chapter on your education, what's the most embarrassing thing when you go back and look at those early works? The ugliest of your children, or it's like the most embarrassing of all?
No, I did this animation that was horrendous, and again, like, don't be ashamed of your portfolio. Don't be ashamed of your reels, because if you see my first one, nobody would ever hire me. You know, I did this countdown with hands. I did a computer, like a robotic hand, and it was like 1, 2, 3. It was so bad. It was so bad. You know, and I look back at that one and said, "Wow, I could take that out of my reel. I don't need that one. I don't want to show that one." But you know, but again, even that, I look back and I laugh at it. You know, so there's no shame.
Well, you learn
it's
from
value.
it.
You know.
Yeah. So with Ice Age, the thing that I treasure to this day about that project is that while I feel like the tendency in computer animation at the time was photorealism,
Right.
That film, and maybe it was built into limitations that you guys had in your software, I don't know what, but it allowed itself to be more stylized, more impressionistic, you know, and like I think in some ways that saved the medium, because I think it was going down a road that was just like Marvel special effects or something, you know, making water as realistic and fur as realistic and all these kind of things. But like Ice Age is like the most cartoony of that era of animation. So could you talk a little bit about like what was behind that, and just in a way the style that created for Blue Sky Studios?
Well, you see, we had a very powerful software, and we could do photorealistic things. We knew that. We knew that we could do it. But that was a very expensive process, you know. And then when we got the reality check of making a feature that is not a 30-second TV commercial, you know, that became the big challenge. So we had to look into like, oh, okay, how this is like a lot more complicated. And even though we could do a little character having fur, you know, we could never really, because we did bunny, like the short bunny, we put fur on that bunny, but we didn't have the full technology there. And the project came in, like we had Ice Age, Manny's all fur, you know, Sid, and the Scrat and all that, and we didn't have the technology fully developed. It was still like baby steps towards it. We thought we had it, but we didn't quite get there. But so I think there was, you know, when you find these creative or these challenges, like technical challenges or creative challenge, I think the best way to solve is finding a creative solution for it. And I think that was like with the help of the art directors, with the team and all that, we found a solution. And I think that solution it worked, and actually worked to our benefit at the time. You know, but keep in mind, back then with the Ice Age, there were like literally like a handful of movies, that would be released every year with computer graphics. So the visual competition was also not that intense, you know, but we wanted to do better. We wanted to make our movie stand out.
But it was near that movie Dinosaur, which nobody watches anymore, but it was another path that computer animation...
Oh yeah, that was like a big thing.
That was like photorealism and real photography integrated with CG, you know, creatures and things like that.
But that was the beauty of it for me. Like, you know, having the capability of doing photorealistic things was great, but you don't need to use it to create, you know, something, you know, how can I put it? It's like, I think having the technology was great, but I think having a better story and fun characters was the true success story there. I think that we managed to work on a first movie in a way that it felt fresh, because the story was fresh and the characters were fresh. It was funny, it was heartfelt. It has all the elements for a good story. So once we had that, the look of it, as important as it is, it wasn't paramount in order to make the movie successful. And that's why I think that we can take the flaws of the look and, you know, and that became a plus because people love the characters and people love the story. And I think that's what matters. So at the end of the day, having the super duper realistic looking movie didn't matter to us. Like, we want to just have a good movie and a fun one to watch.
Well, you know, I think that lesson is still relevant today. I mean, like yesterday I saw this movie, Animal Crackers. Did anyone else see that here? It's in competition, and it's made it a much lower budget, obviously, than DreamWorks or Pixar would have. But it has one of the best screenplays that I've seen in a CG animated movie in a long time. And it's like, well, if you put your priorities in the performance, the script, you know, the design, then you can kind of play at the same level as these companies that have resources well beyond, you know, what you have. And in a way, that's a continuation of that sort of the way that I think the formula was right with Ice Age. You know?
Yeah, and constraints sometimes help you. Like, I think artists can work well with challenges. Like, I don't mind a challenge. Of course, I want a little time to play, but I think that those gives you a little bit of boundaries, you know, like, so you can really work within the space and be creative to make that work. You know, is the challenge of having the tools in front of you, and then you can only work those tools. Things that are, you know, you can create things out of like nothing, you know, and that's what makes you artists. That's what makes you, you know, interesting or special. You know, and I think that goes for everything. You know, your student project doesn't need to be fancy. All it needs to be is kind of like, you know, good. You know, good in terms of story or characters, or at least has to be defined to what is your passion. Because if your passion is like rendering or photorealistic stuff, and then you make a project that's that, and that reflects your passion. But if your passion is like storytelling, movie making, or something like that, and then I think that you don't need like a super fancy software to do it. Like, you can do with anything, even like with a pencil drawing, like it would work. So I think the medium is, in a way, a little bit less important than the creative juice that you have in your brain. And as long as you can execute it, then I think it's valid. So that's why, like, lower budget movies not necessarily means that they're worse movies. It's just like they're lower budget visually, but they could be awesome in terms of storytelling and character development.
Now, it's been, gosh, like what, almost 20 years, not quite, but since, you know, Ice Age to now. I mean, like, looking at the kind of team that you've built at Blue Sky, and that's come, you know, come in and out of the doors there, what is the philosophy that you guys look for in, like, what is a young animator, and what skills or aptitudes do they have that make them attractive to bring onto the team?
I think for me personally, is the core essence of what they really want to do and how they want to. How they see computer animation, how they see making movies or making animation. Like, it's interesting because it didn't change much from the time that, you know, in terms of like, you know, mindset. I don't think it changed as much when I started. We all wanted the same things. We all had the dream of making animation and all that. And it's interesting because when I started, I was a little bit, like, I did everything a little bit because there were not a lot of people that were doing it. So I had to do modeling, I had to do rigging, I had to do animation. So my skill, I need to have many more skills in order to achieve what I really wanted to do. Like, by the time I started to animate it, I already had done a lot of work before. Now it's definitely with bigger projects and the bigger companies, definitely more specialized. So if you want to focus on rigging, or, you know, or getting the characters ready for animation or materials or art direction, or, you know, you can definitely specialize more, and it's an interesting you know, approach. And so we look much more to those specific skills, you know, but that doesn't take away the overall bigger picture. Is to like that to see as an artist or as an individual that you still have the passion and you have the eye for the final product, you know, like you have the eye for really what you want to achieve. So I think that that's really important. So
let's say people want to direct or want to tell their own stories. Is it the wrong idea to go into a company that's as big as Blue Sky and maybe better off to try and do it on their own? Or can they come in the door with a specialty, but the dream of one day, you know, overseeing a project there? And I don't necessarily mean specifically Blue Sky, but obviously that's the, I think that's often kind of the dilemma that people have. The dream is to work for one of these big companies, but the real dream is to sit in your seat, and there are only so many positions, like that. So is it better to sort of go off a different route, or?
I don't know if everybody have that, if they have that dream. It's a fine dream to have, and if you have that dream, you're gonna work towards that, But it's not for everyone too, I know a lot of amazing, talented people that started at the same time as me and had the opportunity of directing and doing things like that, and they decided like, well, I want to animate. That's my passion. I want to be an awesome animator, and I want to make sure that I work with other awesome animators, and I can get even more, people working with animation. So I think the dreams are not for everybody, but if that's your dream, I think you won't be able to achieve it right away. I think that's in everywhere. You don't walk in with a student portfolio that says, "Hi, my name is this. I want to be a director." That's a big no-no. I don't think that happens anywhere, unless but if you already produced like shorts and things that got awards, and then your name is out there. It's amazing, and you probably will have a chance to do that. But even then, I think it's going to take a little time, because directing is not only just, oh, I have a vision, I want to do it. It's working with people. It has many other skills. You have to have people skills. You have to work with executives. You have to be able to change your, to work within changes. You have to be able to interact. You have to be able to communicate. You have to be able to inspire. You have to be able to be part of a bigger team. You have to be able to give up your ideas. You have to be able to adapt. So there's so many like check boxes that, and those check boxes, comes with time, actually. When I started at Blue Sky, I wanted to be an animator, and that was as far as my dream went. But then as I saw things going, I saw opportunities of directing commercials. It was a small commercial, but maybe I'll give it a try. And I liked it. I say the same way that other of my peers had the same opportunity, but they didn't like it. So it's a matter of like finding your path, but you will not be handed that path just because you won the title. I think you have to get there.
Right, it's partly about humility. It's also about recognizing that you have to work up to it.
Yeah. And to answer your questions, like if you want to go to a bigger company and you want to direct, there's a line.
Yeah.
And projects that you should know, animation like 4 years to make a movie. And if you're in the bottom of the line, when by the time you're 80, you're like, I want to direct a movie. Because there would be like 10 people ahead of you. So, but sometimes that line could be fast, But, the beauty of the business now, I think, even with all the challenges, is that fortunately there are more pop-up studios coming up. Like there are more smaller, interesting, like visionary studios that not only in America, but in France and in Spain, and people with dreams to make something cool, to making something that makes a difference. And it's happening more and more. Like back then there was not a lot of choices, Now there are more. And look, everybody has challenges. It's never easy. Even big studios like Blue Sky, we have challenges every day. And we don't know what's going to happen. So if you are an aspiring animator / director, or you have a project in mind and you have the resources to make it small or to make it into a smaller studio, it's good. And also the world now, it's all internet, YouTube, Vimeo. You have like like Netflix that's becoming a studio, like sponsoring or financing animation, like even large-scale animation. So it's a much more diverse world right now in terms of like animation studios, which is, I think there are opportunities. If you look for them, there are opportunities everywhere.
I want to give the crowd a taste of your new project, but before we get to Ferdinand, can you tell us if there's sort of like a one that got away in the time that you've been working at Blue Sky, something that sort of at some stage of development, maybe it was just a pitch or something like that, it kind of pains you to think that it never made its way to the screen?
I think that, let me think about it. We did have projects that went away, but they were projects that maybe went away with the right reasons, you know, and well, we didn't know that then, you know, and just went away. We had a project we were developing way back that was like in a few years back that was like, you know, these characters that went to like Egypt. It was a fun journey adventure and all that, and that project went away. And I remember when it went away, like there was a sadness in the group because we had put some work in it. The directors had like worked the whole thing and started to put the movie on reels and went away. But then looking back at it, we realized like, wow, that might be okay, you know, because it allows us to do something else and might have been, you know, okay to shut that one down. So there are choices that happens, and that's life, you know, like you do it, it doesn't work out, you kind of move on. So I think it's part of the experience is having those little bit of disappointments as you go through it. As long as you bounce back and you continue pursuing your creative, I believe that you just don't only have an idea in your head, you have many ideas, you know, and hopefully if one idea doesn't work, you can move on to the next one. You know, and then there are projects that I read and I say, oh my God, I love this project, I want to make it, I want to make it, I want to make it, and then it kind of never happens, you know. I have a live action project that, you know, that I've been playing with. It's based on a storybook, you know, it's called Rust, that I love it, you know, but I never yet got a chance to make it. So I always have that project or that dream in the back of my head, but life goes on, you know, you keep going after it, you know, and then who knows, one day it's going to be made, and then it's going to be great, or not, you know. So we just have to move on. You cannot linger on those feelings of, oh, I just didn't have a chance to do the project. You can't do that. You know, you just have to, you know, look ahead. Life's too short. Like, just keep looking ahead and go after it.
Well, you know, like, your response isn't necessarily what I was fishing for, but there's a lesson in there that I see sometimes with young filmmakers or animators where it's like, they have a really great concept, and they're like, this is my ticket. You know, it's like, it may actually be the thing that 15, 20 years down the road defines their career, but it's like the idea is to have as many ideas and as many pitches and possibilities as you can, especially early on, because those are all possible doors that open to you, rather than being sort of, you know, tunnel vision on.
You know, a vision is something, or it's something that's worth always going after, because it's something that, you know, creative, if you, you know, when we are creative or thinking, it's a little bit like vision for me almost equals obsession. So you have a little bit of that feeling of that. So, and I give you an example. When I started at Blue Sky, when Chris recruited me to work at Blue Sky, he said, you know, I went to a visit to this crummy little office outside of New York. Literally, the place was like not nice. It was like a bad, you know, accounting office kind of thing. Like nothing creative about it. And then he takes to this little room and he has a few of these kind of like storyboards of this old bunny, like just like really funny drawings there. And it's like, you know, I want to make that movie. I want to make that short. You know, I'm making it. You know, this is like the short got made 8 years later. So, but that panel never left the wall. So, and I give you props for that, because it's like, it was a vision, a dream, that eventually came true. Like, we did many other works before, after that conversation, we did so many works, like we could never, but part of it is like, we had to survive, but that objective was always on the wall. So when we finally had a chance to make that, we were ready for it. And it took us 2 years to make that project, and Chris Wedge was able to put his passion on screen, and then he got a reward for it, you know. Not only, the best reward was being able to finish it. I think that was the best reward. And the consequences of that reward that you should never count on is like, you know, got awards, got an Oscar, open doors, so we can eventually do something like Ice Age.
Right.
So I think that, you know, having that goal, it's important, you know, and I think that you should never, if you feel that that's your idea, that's what you want to pursue it, you know, go after it. Find ways of doing it. Just like don't lose sight of it.
Right. I mean, in a way, you're saying both that and having the flexibility or adaptability along the way to have a career that'll get you there too.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it is possible. Like you keep saying, oh, it's impossible. The market is too crowded. There's too many animators. There's too many. I'm never ever gonna make my movie. It's like if you think that way, yes, it's not gonna happen. But I think you have to think positive. You have to think about a way just to okay. What can I do to break the system? What can I do to make my work matter? Like, what can I do myself? Like, it's all about your inner strength to keep pushing, to going after it. Like you're gonna get a lot of doors and no's in front of you, but never give up that, that goal, that idea.
Well, let's take a look at the project that you have coming this Christmas, Ferdinand, which some people know as a children's book, some people know as a Disney cartoon from '38. And how did it sort of fall into your hands, and what's your take?
Well, this will be my 7th movie at Blue Sky. Of course, started with the Ice Age movies, then we did Robots. Ice Age 2 was my first sole directorial project, then Ice Age 3. And then I had the privilege of getting my own idea into the big screen, which was Rio. And then we did Rio 2. And then when I was working on Rio 2, I came upon this book, and then, we had an opportunity to buy the rights for this children's book. Which I was not fully familiar with. I was more familiar with the Disney short, because back in Brazil they would play that once in a while on the children's channel. And then I came upon this book, and then they said, well, we might have the rights to make it into a movie, but the book is very thin. There's not a huge amount of story, but it has a great message. For me, that was the best part. It had a message of tolerance. It had a message of being true to who you are. And that's what I look for in movies, all my projects. Make sure that I have a message that I can grab onto it, so I can create the work after that. So that was very powerful. Little book, powerful message. And then I started to do more research about it, and then I realized that the project people love that project. That generations and generations be reading that book. And up to today, it's still in the top 10 list of classics that you should read to your children in any newspapers in the US. So it was something that was special. And then the challenge would be okay, how can I expand this project to be something like a 90-minute movie? And that was the challenge, but I thought that I had a core idea that I could work on it. So it became a passion project. I finished Rio, and I jumped into Ferdinand right away. And I started to work on the project. And this is probably the hardest project I ever worked on, because it was, I had many challenges in every project. Rio was the challenge of doing something that was about my hometown. So I had a lot of pressure from, so I wouldn't, screw it up and then disappoint people out there, or making, not having a good impression onto what I was trying to create. So that was was challenging that way. But this one, the challenge was how can I keep the essence of this little book into a bigger movie? And I was always pushing for that message. The message needs to be clear. The character needs to be appealing. And how can we make a bull be likable? So all those challenges. So this has been a very different. And it was a project also that I had a hard time selling. To sell Rio, literally was in a room with executives. I put a tape, a montage that I did with people dancing samba, the beautiful sights of Rio, colors, and all that stuff. Music was blasting, everybody was dancing. Yes, let's make that movie. So that was the real pitch. It was was a fun kind of process. But Ferdinand, I'd be it's a bull in Spain, and he doesn't want to fight. And okay. And it's great because it has a good message. So it wasn't as intense and wasn't as fluid as a pitch, and people couldn't get it. So it only took me about 2 years to be able to prove that I could do it. But it was difficult. It was different. I didn't have anything to show that I had the first thing that I did when I pitched Rio. I did a little animation. We got a little animation of Blue dancing samba. The minute that popped up, everybody was let's make that movie. With Ferdinand, I had a bull. It's how am I gonna like it? But luckily, we had an amazing designer who gave us a wonderful looking character, Sergio Pablos from Spain. He did my characters on Rio, and then he managed to give the design for Ferdinand. And then once I started to see the shape and the face of the character, I started to fall in love with it. And I grabbed onto the emotion of the book to make sure that that was the message. So this is different from the other movies. It's all about one main character, and that character you gotta fall in love with. And that's what I went for. So hopefully, December coming, we're all gonna have an opportunity to watch. So So what I was able to bring, I didn't. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to bring too much because we're in the middle of production, so we couldn't like open up yet to everybody the project. You know, we did a trailer, a teaser trailer, that gives you a little bit of a taste of the movie and the things that we're working on. And so the voice of Ferdinand in the U.S. is by this actor John Cena, which is, you know, I don't know if he's familiar, I don't know if people know of him here, but you know, he's very popular in the U.S. because he's a WWE wrestler, and he was in a movie, Trainwreck, with Amy Schumer, and he is massive. He's huge, and then he is like, when you look at him, you feel like you're completely scared of him. And then, but then when he starts to talk to you, he's super gentle and he's super soft and sweet and all that. And I say, yeah, you are Ferdinand. And he says, like, I am Ferdinand. I said, good. So let's have it.
He's in a movie that's out in France right now too, called The Wall.
Oh, The Wall. Yes, that's coming out. Yeah, that's. I think Amazon is doing that one, or.
I don't remember but it's out in the U.S. as well.
Yeah, he's great, and I think that when he.
Amazon.
Now that he is, you know, the voice of Ferdinand, you know, he brings that likability to the character. So, you know, those fortunate pairings, you know, and that great chemistry allows the movies to start to play. So, let me share. I was just going to show. Sorry for the small screen kind of stuff, but I'll show you guys a little bit of the trailer. And then, do you mind? On peut changer l'écran, s'il vous plaît? Do you have it? Are you there? Okay. Spacebar. Okay. I got it. Okay. There you go. There you go. Yeah. Come on, guys! Come on. Sorry, I almost killed you. Ow! I'm very happy to be here, but I have to fly back tonight to continue to work on it, so we have more than a trailer to watch in December. So,
you guys must be getting pretty near to being. How many years did it actually take to produce that? 4 years roughly. From the original idea is about 4. Yeah, we've been in thicker production for 2 years because I finished Rio 2 and then I started right away, and but it's been around for a while. So now we're in hell. It's crunch time.
Crunch time, yes.
All right, well, I'd like to open the conversation up to the audience and see if you guys have questions for Carlos. So I guess we'll just kind of raise your hands. Do we have microphones, or do you want me to repeat the questions?
And if you want to speak in French, like I speak a little bit, so I can understand the questions, and it's okay. Don't be shy. It's okay.
We'll start here in the front row, and it looks like we do have mics, so just give her a second.
Thanks, Carlos. That was amazing. I'm from South Africa, and as a filmmaker, you've obviously got a lot of films under your belts. Do you know which ones are going to be hits and which ones are not? And do you have a feeling when it comes out that this is going to like change the world, or are they all exactly the same for you? And then when the critics commercially review it, you're like, what? I didn't expect that.
The critics. Well, you know, usually the way I work, you know, I work with my gut feeling. I think that when you see something that has potential, like you have to trust your instincts. So sometimes you have an idea in your head, you're like, I think that's gonna be good. And sometimes that's shit, you know, like, you know, that happens to me a lot too. Like, but I think you have to work with a gut feeling, you know. And when I came upon this project, I knew that was gonna be hard, you know, but I knew that I could try to make it good, you know. Because it had already a good foundation to it. Because I think it's all for movies. For me, the movies that work the best is the movies that has the deepest, most honest emotion. You know, that's what you know, it's not that it's a formula or a rule, but the movies that taps you into the heart first, it grabs you by the heart first, is the one that for me works the best. So you always, for me, when I think about a movie, it's like, okay, what are you trying to say with this one? When I walk away, how am I gonna feel? And that's the way I start. Even before I have the drawings, even before I have the characters, this is the way I start. So when I came up on this one, it's like, yes, I want to start with a heartfelt kind of like emotion of a guy that struggles or suffers because he's being misjudged. And I think that when I heard that, it's like, oh my God, that's powerful, because when somebody misjudged me, I get so pissed off, I get so angry, so depressed that I wanted to overcome that. I wanted to be okay, you know. And I think that's where I go for it. So that said, it doesn't mean that the project will be successful. I still don't know. But I work with that in mind, and so I try just to really, really pursue what I feel is the core, honest essence of it. And then, of course, like you get designers, you get good artists to work with, you get good people to share the vision. And it's a work in progress, but it's scary, man. Like you go every day I look at the project, is it gonna be good? Is it gonna be good? I don't know. You don't know until you know it, you know, and by the time you get to find out, it's a little too late, so knock on wood, it's gonna be great, because 4 years went by, so. But again, go with your gut. I think that's my first instinct, always.
You know, to briefly follow up on that, just the fact that you're from South Africa, that you came from Rio. I mean,
right.
How do you feel about just people coming to America to work in animation versus staying in their local areas? You talked about how, you know, there's so much great Spanish and French talent, and you know, some of them are being poached or gone, some of them are working at home. I mean, what's your sort of advice in general to people there?
I think it's a personal choice. You know, there's always pros and cons. You know, you have to move, if you feel like you want to move away from where you are to get better opportunities, or if you do have that opportunity, I think it's valid. That's what I did. That doesn't mean that you kind of like shut off the door behind you. Like, but I know everything. I know people that like me left and then find the opportunity somewhere else and pursue that and became like successful that way. And I know people that did that, decided that I've done enough, I want to come back, and then they went back to their countries and are doing successful again. It's a choice, you know. And, you know, Sergio Pablos is a good one. Like, he worked at Disney for many years, amazing animator, amazing designer. He found his home back at home in Madrid, you know. So he is making, now will be making an animated feature. So I think it's choices. I think people do that, and then it's up to you finding where you would be the happiest. Because, you know, the job is great, you know, and if you love animation, it's awesome, like, because you're gonna really, that's your passion. But at the end of the day, you have to be happy. You have to be happy. If you're not happy, there's no point. You know, there's no, because time flies, you know, and so you gotta see where you're the happiest. You know, if it's back in the garage in your house, just making, like, you know, YouTube videos of little animation clips that you like, it's awesome, just do that. You know, just find your happiness, and that's the key.
Right. Other questions? Don't be shy. Now's your chance. Carlos goes back tonight, so you can't like stop him on the street in 2 days and ask the question you didn't ask.
Hello?
Hello? Is it on?
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry for my accent. My question is, in what extent the Disney short movie of Ferdinand is an inspiration for your movie?
The short, it was what I remember, but I didn't use the short as my source of inspiration. I think the book for me was more inspiring. Like I went, because the book is a lot simpler. It was a black and white drawing, and I was able to extrapolate, how can I say it? I was able to see beyond the lines, and I wanted to have my own vision of how the movie would look. And the Disney short was already with color, already with animation. It was already a vision, an interpretation of the book, and I didn't connect with that one as much, you know. So I went back to the source of the story, which was the book, and I tried to research there and see. I actually, what I did, I read the book to my children, and tried to feel how they felt about the book. And then I talked to the teachers that read the books to the kids and asked them, how do you feel when you write it? Why do you like this book? You know? And so then I started to do my own private little research to how people, and nobody mentions the short to me like everybody mentions the book. So it felt to me that that was the main source of my inspiration. And and then I started to grab all the messages that I got from different people, and that was kind of like what I started to formulate in terms to create the foundation of the story. But the short is beautiful. I love the short. It's great.
Do you feel like there's any built-in challenge to differentiate the film from the short? Like I know that Blue Sky, sort of revisited Dr. Seuss after there had been these kind of iconic TV, films made. In a way, that's a proof of concept that you can take something that everyone kind of has an iconic idea of and reinvent it.
The short has an interpretation of the book, a look that was beautiful for the time that was done. I think the short got an Oscar for it. Back in '39, I think it got a special mention in the Oscars back then. They didn't have the category for animation. And I think that, but I knew the look that I wanted, like I knew where I wanted to get, and I wanted to feel like, I wanted to make it funny, but I didn't want it to feel as cartoony as the short. Like I wanted to have my own style back in. I wanted to come up with a way that it felt right. So I was kind of like, that was not like a frame of reference for me too much.
Right, other questions? Up here?
Bonjour. Bonjour. Alors je vais poser ma question en français parce que mon accent anglais est très mauvais. Vous avez principalement fait des longs métrages. Est-ce que vous pensez que vous continuerez donc à faire des longs métrages ou est-ce que la série aussi pourrait vous intéresser?
You've primarily worked in feature films. Do you plan to continue in feature films, or are you also interested in television series?
Yeah, I'm interested in anything that's creative. I think that there's great opportunities for different formats, even for animation or live action or hybrids, because now there's this new label called hybrids, which is pretty much movies with special effects. But they call that, I like the word hybrid. But, so I think there's a lot of opportunities in all those things. And I like challenges. This is like my latest movie. As I said, it was my 7th movie. Not that I'm tired of making them, but I want to just try to see if I can do other things as well. So I look into doing other things. I've looked some like live action or hybrid series for other formats. Of course, live action projects as well that involves computer animation like that. So as long as it feels creative, again, I keep going back to the message. As long as the message of the movie is good, at this point for me, it doesn't really matter what kind of medium I'm going to be using, what kind of format I'm going to be making it. As long as I feel satisfied that the story will be good, I think that I'm interested in that. But I love doing projects like this. And that's one thing that I do miss a little bit is having a chance to do another short. I kind of miss that opportunity, but one day.
What would it take to make the leap to live action for you? Is it a question of rights or your deal with Fox, or is that far down the road, or something that could even be your next project?
I don't think it's far down the road, but I think it's just a matter of finding the project. I think it's all about finding the project. It's just like I just don't want to do live action for the sake of doing live action. I want to feel inspired by whatever project I get to, because again, it's a commitment. So even if it's maybe not as long as a commitment to an animated movie, it's a commitment. And I really want to try to make something that I feel that if I'm going to put my time doing it, that it would be something that I would like to do it. So I have the two wants, is to have the experience of doing it, but at the same time doing something that matters. So that's why it takes a little long, because you have to find the right project.
All right, I think we've reached the end of our hour with Carlos. So let's thank him for. Thank you all, and maybe we'll see you at other events in the week.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Enjoy.